I'll shoot this to you. Are you ready for rapid fire?
Ooh, I caught it. Let's go.
All right, then. So we talked about quarterbacks earlier in the show. I've been seeing some people picking Steve Angeli to win the starting quarterback job. My question to you is picking Angeli a hot take or is it a legit prediction?
I don't think it's a hot take. I think it's maybe a mild, like warming up kind of take at the end of the day, because I think if you said Kenny Minchie, that would be maybe more of a
Hotter
take,
take? Yeah.
because I think Angeli does, he has a legit chance, but I would place the chances at like 60-40, 70-30-ish kind of range if I had to really kind of go, down into that percentage side of things. But he is, I would say, technically the leading guy until proven otherwise type situation. Like, I think if you walked into camp, I think there is a natural kind of depth chart, but I don't think that means that 2 and 3 can't pass 1. I just think of, if you had to set something now and who's probably going to walk out there with the first strings and get the first shot at everything, it is going to be Angeli. But again, that doesn't mean that 2 and 3 both potentially couldn't pass him at the end of the day.
I mean, if you're picking anyone to win the job this spring, it's definitely a hot take. But I just like it's not going to happen this spring. Like in terms of what's going to be announced, like they might even keep the pecking order the way they've got it. But like if Angeli is your pick and it is your legit pick right now, you might as well go on First Take and say Patrick Mahomes lost the Super Bowl and he's no longer a top 5 quarterback. Like that's like, to me, it's on par with something like that. Like I would not be pushing all my chips in the Steve Angeli, part of the table right now. Like not even close. Like, do you really think, okay, so they had Steve Angeli last year after he had started a bowl game and won a bowl game, right? And people, like just were ready to anoint him at that point, but they still went to the transfer portal and brought in an injured quarterback from another school to be the starter instead. But so like if you think that Steve Angeli is the reason that Marcus Freeman and Mike Denbrock and Gino Gaduli had the confidence not to go to the transfer portal once again, that, my friend, and you're saying that he's going to be the guy, that, my friends, I consider a hot take.
Okay.
So that's the way I'm rolling with it. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Notre Dame sent out 94 offers on Pot of Gold Day, but none of them were to quarterbacks.
I find it to be reassuring because of what we kind of just talked about there in the main segment. Marcus Freeman and company felt that they didn't need to go to the portal, and they sent out 90 plus offers and didn't feel that they needed to, hit or send one out to a quarterback. So again, I just think it reaffirms or shows their confidence or comfortability with what the quarterback situation looks like right now and kind of the plan that they have going forward. And so for that reason, I have to be reaffirmed, because Marcus Freeman has done nothing but reaffirm me more and more as he continues to develop as a head coach at Notre Dame. Like every year, yes, he stumbled some, but he has reaffirmed me at the end of the day. And so I can't do anything but trust him.
Yeah, I tend to agree with what John is saying, though. I still think it's somewhat surprising. I mean, I don't disagree with the shape of the room and who they've got and all that kind of stuff. And, look, there's likely to be some movement in that room based on who ends up winning the job, right? The likelihood that all those guys stay is pretty slim. They do have Blake Hebert, currently on campus as a freshman, an early enrollee, in addition to the other 3 guys. They've got Noah Grubbs in the 2026 class, so they're pretty set. They've seen all these 2027 quarterbacks. I just am surprised that, because of the fact that things are so volatile, like I just think it's important to have at least one quarterback in every class because you just don't want to get caught in a transfer portal crisis, which can easily happen down the road. A couple guys end up going in the portal. Maybe one of them's a guy you didn't expect, So I think that, Joe Rizak is in there for now, but he's, I guess I was about to say not a scholarship quarterback, but at the same time, like, I don't think we have official word on exactly, like who's a scholarship guy, to what extent anymore. But a lot of defensive linemen, a lot of secondary guys got offered on Pot of Gold Day, so that's good. But I'm just a little bit surprised because you need to keep that pipeline of top level quarterbacks rolling. So again, you don't get caught, in that crisis mode in the future, depending on, what happens with transfers and that kind of thing. Joe, going back to the Riley Leonard thing, yes, Leonard was coming in before the bowl game. They just didn't announce it. Yeah, so like technically, like I said, you had Steve Angeli. He started the bowl and all that kind of stuff. They had Steve Angeli in practice and able to evaluate him before that as well. So I guess that's more, kind of what I was talking about as opposed to just, the Sun Bowl. But your point is taken. So just the Big 12 has moved 6 conference football games to Friday nights this upcoming season. It gives them a total of 10 Friday night games next season. Do you buy or sell the continuing to move Friday nights for college football?
Buy it. Love it. I'll continue to eat it up. It just spreads that wealth of football across the weekend. I can't watch every game on Saturday as much as I would like. And obviously when the Notre Dame game comes on, that's what I'm focused on for 4 or 5 hours on a given Saturday. And so, to me, it's like if you can spread that action out and gain and allow the Big 12 to maybe get some more exposure and fans to be able to kind of absorb and have a better understanding of what the Big 12 is, and how the state of the football that given season, so you can give a proper evaluation of them kind of maybe compared to some of these other conferences. I love it. And so, I think that's where I'm at.
I mean, the argument against this is Friday night should be for high school football, and that's traditionally what it's been. And for a long time, like the NFL has always stayed off that corner until the last couple of years. They've gone to this Black Friday thing. But again, that's later in the season. You do have some state championship football games going on there, but it's an afternoon game the day after Thanksgiving. Jesse said, or DK says, Jesse, don't care about high school kids. But, this is my point. The more I've gotten away from high school football, the less I care. Like, I'm getting older. I'm home on Friday nights. And to me, having a college football game on TV is, better than probably 9 of the other 10 things, that are potential options to watch. If you're the parent of a high school kid, if you're the significant other of a high school kid, if you're the grandparent or an aunt and uncle of a high school kid, okay, but like that all takes place in a vacuum. Like, that is its own thing. I don't think that moving a few college games to Friday nights is cutting into the interest in high school football. Like, I think if you are directly involved, it's basically like, like when you have kids and, and I mean, I'll say that I was part of this as well, but it's like, you're bragging about your kids in your little league and your high school on Facebook and, Instagram and whatever else. It's like nobody else cares about that stuff but you, because they're your kids and you're interested in them. And it's largely the same with high school football, with the exception of the small communities, but they're all going to be into high school football anyway. They're not going to care about these Friday night college games. So I think that, like I'm home on Friday nights. I think it's great that there's a college game to watch on Friday night, because I don't get to sit home all day and watch it on Saturday because I'm at the stadium covering games.
Yeah, I think kind of what I agree with, and what I was going to say is kind of what you were getting into. It's a small population of people comparatively that have kids in high school, or have some sort of connection to a kid in high school that plays football on a Friday night. There's a much larger crowd of people who no longer have kids that are participating in high school football, like you were saying, that are home on Friday and want something to watch on a Friday evening. And it's like the perfect appetizer for a full day of college football
Yep.
on Saturday. And I agree with what DK was saying. People that were going to the high school games were going regardless. And you're a bad parent if you say you're going to stay home for Kansas versus Nebraska instead
Right.
of watching your son play high school football.
That's exactly right. If you're going to the high school game, you're going to go to the high school game. And it's probably because you've got a kid or a grandkid or a nephew or whatever who's involved in
There's
it.
a very small crowd of people who just go watch high school football games on Friday for the fun of it because they're just maybe they're a teacher at the school,
well, again,
or
like
maybe in the community,
smaller
or
communities and things like that, that tends to be a big part of your entertainment. And because it's a smaller community, it's like the high school, athletic teams become an extension of the community. And so there is some interest there. But again, it's like you can have both, like both can exist at the same time, like the people who are going to go to those high school games are going to go and they don't care about the game that's on Friday night. Maybe, like you said, they get ticked off, like if you're Joe and you live in Nebraska, or, like Joe's neighbor and you live in Nebraska, you're ticked off because Nebraska is going to play on Friday night because now, your kid's also playing on Friday night. So you don't get to watch that game. Well, okay. So you don't get to watch the one game a year, so I like it. I like it as a TV product. Someone posted on one of our videos yesterday that sports is not entertainment. And I'm not sure exactly, where that came from based on what we were talking about yesterday, but don't you think sports is entertainment? I mean, that's why it's on TV. It's there to entertain us, right? I realize to the players and coaches, it is their livelihood, but to everyone else, it's entertainment.
So it is an entertainment product, and how you let that entertainment influence you, either good or bad, is a different story.
Very well said. No one's throwing their remotes at the TV when if Top Gun Maverick's plot goes off course at the end, but when your favorite team's plot goes on off course at the end, things go
maybe not as
haywire.
entertaining as you thought it would be.
Yeah, maybe that's what we were talking from the RG3 question that we were talking about yesterday. Maybe that's where it came from. I'm not sure, but the whole he thinks that sports debate TV has ruined sports.
Yeah, I think that sports debate TV, when there's not stuff going on, and
must have been Salty, the one who was, going with a different handle. He says it came from the discussion about the comment that sports talk shows are, ruining sports, like I said. Go ahead, Jess.
I think what I was going to say is I just, when there's things to actually talk about and debate because of what's going on, that's all great. But I hate when it's kind of like what you were talking about. Like these last couple of weeks, like because the content hasn't been as rich as it usually is, I don't like when people just kind of come up with stuff just to be controversial. And then that's when it gets a little bit, like, what are we even talking about here? Why are we talking about, Dak Prescott in the middle of the offseason and what he's doing on vacation and how it influences how important he takes footballers? You know what I mean? Stuff like that is where it gets annoying. But when you actually have, in-season substance and you can actually have a debate about it, that's a different story. I just don't like, it feels like they're stretching some of these topics out and just kind of debating and arguing just to debate and argue.
Yeah. And I think most of this, a lot of this conversation began with the Stephen A and his LeBron takes and, all those different things. And, it's just on and on and on and on. Fill in the blank. West Virginia Governor Patrick Morrisey is flat out mad that the West Virginia Mountaineers were left out of the NCAA men's basketball tournament. It's blank that he's asked his state's attorney general to open an investigation into the NCAA selection committee to find out whether any backdoor deals were made.
it's just a bit too much. Like
I just don't understand why these politicians like you have to go to this. Like this is the level that you have to
as
go
much
to.
as it sucks, every year there's a first four out and a first four in.
Yeah.
And every year, and I'm not saying it's excusable or acceptable, but someone gets snubbed and someone gets snubbed really hard, and I get it, and it's a lot easier for me to say this because it's not my team or a team that I'm a diehard fan of or been following all season, right? And so I get it. It's okay to be frustrated, but it's like kind of like the 24 or 48-hour rule. It's like it is ultimately kind of out of your control and you just kind of got to let it go. There's just other things that are more important kind of at the end of the day, right? And so all you're doing with this is you're kind of just creating false hope for some of these fans that like something is actually going to happen
Yeah.
or change at the end of the day.
Like
Because
they're
at the end of the day,
miraculously just going to take whoever out and put West Virginia in because
right,
the
like
governor
at the end of
stepped
the
in.
day, it gets long and drawn out and nothing really happens. There's nothing that's really going to change. And so it's too much. You kind of again, it sucks. I get that, but you just kind of have to let it go after a couple days, in my opinion.
Someone's got to be left out. Even if they expand the tournament, someone's going to be left out, just like we found this year with football, right? Like Alabama got mad, Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin were mad that they got left out. Now the SEC wants to, completely, redo the whole format, but, so they make sure they get more teams in. But I guess that's a completely different story. But politicians who do this are obviously just playing to their base. They know that if they do this, they're going to stir up their own people and and make their constituents happy. But they're just
it shows that you care, I guess.
Yeah, it shows they care. But to everybody else outside of that bubble, you're just a big crybaby. Is all you are when you push it to this link because nothing's going to come of it. Ultimately, like you said, you're probably just getting people's hopes up. Nothing's going to come of it, though. But you always hear about politicians doing this kind of stuff. So, I guess kind of related topic. Are you as outraged by North Carolina getting in the men's tournament as most of the rest of the country seems to be?
No. And the reason why and I actually feel like I have some logic and rationale behind this answer. Do you remember when Michigan State, I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago, got let in on a similar situation and it really outraged a lot of people and they actually had to play in the play-in game.
Right.
Do you remember what happened that season? They went all the way down to like the Elite 8, I want to say, or at least the Sweet 16, right? And so, and again, this might not track well with a lot of people, but it's my opinion and it's my take. North Carolina is just one of those blue blood programs at the end of the day, and they're going to get kind of when push comes to shove and it's a 50-50 toss-up, you going with the blue blood or you going with West Virginia?
They're going to get some preferential treatment. That's right.
But the thing is
if you're leaving it to the subjectivity of human beings picking these things, not every decision is going to go the way that even a majority of other people think that it's supposed to go.
Right. And so that's where I'm just like, North Carolina is a blue blood program. They're going to sell the seats. And that's the thing is they've earned this reputation because of how good they've been at basketball the last 40 years. And so I don't think that there is something wrong when push comes to shove. I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt to the team that's predominantly had a lot of success in the NCAA tournament. And again, if that rubs you the wrong way, I'm sorry, but it kind of bodes the same for Notre Dame. If push comes to shove, Notre Dame would get a budge in the college football playoff because of who they are and how many fans would show up to those games. It's really kind of the similar conversation, in my opinion.
Look at Andrew using facts to back up his argument. That's so cute, Andrew.
I'm more upset about Michigan's seed than I am about this North Carolina situation. And I
they
hate
got seeded
Michigan.
Too low. Yeah.
You look at the resume of the Big Ten and the teams that they beat teams twice that have a higher seed than them. They won the Big Ten championship at the end of the season. It's like, again, I hate Michigan. I will never make excuses for Michigan, but on paper, I'm more pissed about their seed than I am North Carolina making it over West Virginia.
And look, someone's got to get left out. Someone's going to get in. A few teams are going to get left out, a few worthy teams. And in this case, it's West Virginia who's doing all the barking. North Carolina gets in. There's a what happens if North Carolina goes on a run? What happens if they at least get to the Sweet 16?
What happened with Izzo and Michigan State? Let the thing play out, honestly. Like, if they lose in the first round, then you could be like, yeah, it was obvious that they didn't deserve. But, like, at the end of the day, they still have a chance. And if they go to the Final Four, then it's like egg on everyone else's face.
Right. Exactly. And, again, like, we're quibbling about teams, 67 and 68 and 69 or, whatever, like that's what we're parsing hairs at the end. And so West Virginia might have had a few more quad one wins, but at the end of the day, is it really going to matter? I realize that to the guys who are on that team, it's obviously going to matter, and their families and their friends and their school and all that kind of stuff. It matters. Well, go out and win the NIT then, because how many of these snubs do we see go one and done in the NIT as well when it's all said and done? Someone's got to get in, someone's going to be left home. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Steph Curry is going to be the assistant general manager for men's basketball at his alma mater, Davidson.
It is forecasting his future after the NBA. I think it's awesome. And I definitely think it's based. I think this is kind of the precursor to his life after the NBA. A lot of people go on to be commentators, get into coaching, maybe, get into the management side of things. I think this is a very clear indication of what Steph Curry wants to do after his playing time is over and still be involved in basketball. And I think it'll kind of continue to develop. And what makes it even cooler is it's his alma mater, and Davidson isn't known, on the map maybe compared to a lot of those blue buds that we were just talking about. And so I think it'll prop up Davidson as well, knowing that Steph Curry is tied to the program.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to, really the profile that Davidson has is because of Steph Curry. And no, Josh, he is not retiring. He's going to continue. He's going to do this as a player, basically. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of how that, kind of coexist, but he is getting a little older. What is he? 37, 38 now? Something like that. Yeah. So, he's getting a little bit older, but he's going to do this for a while. He's more or less kind of like a brand ambassador, but I think it's pretty cool. A guy of Steph Curry's profile to get involved in something like this. And, like you said, this will probably be the path that his, where he goes in his post-playing days. But it's pretty cool that he's going to be able to do this while he's still a player and be involved with his alma mater and kind of get the second part of his career, like the second act, sort of kickstarted at the same time.
Exactly.
So USC women's basketball coach, the opposite of snubs, Lindsey Gottlieb, says she is disrespected by being the fourth number one seed in the NCAA tournament because she and her women of Troy are matched up with number 2 seed UConn in their region. What would you say, Jesse, to console Gottlieb?
So first, we need to realize that Lindsey Gottlieb, same last name as Doug Gottlieb.
No relation, though. No relation.
Always got to clarify. What would I say to console her? This is, if you're so worried about UConn, that's an Elite Eight matchup. And by the time you get to the Elite Eight, you're probably going to be playing a tough team regardless. Because like you, Vince, and I think maybe DJ yesterday were going on about, there's about 4 or 5 teams that you could comfortably say have a legit shot at the national championship. And so the chances of you running into one of those teams in the Elite Eight is highly probable. And so again, this isn't like we're in the round of 64. I think you're sending the wrong message by being focused on what could potentially happen all the way down at the Elite Eight. And if you want some real consolation, how about let's talk about the team that beat both of these schools and somehow is a 3 seed at the end of the day? I think there's bigger bones to be picked than
that's exactly right.
Than what's going on here.
That's why I would say suck it up, Buttercup, because you're a number 1 seed. You know,
right. At the end of the day, you're still a number 1.
Yes, you talk about first world problems. There are a lot of worse things to be concerned about than being one of the 4 number 1 seeds. Everyone's going to have a good team. You know, if you're the number 1, there's going to be a good team that's going to be the number 2. That's just the way this whole tournament thing works, you know. And, you know, again, like if you wanted to get down and parse resumes and all that kind of stuff, there is at least some case for USC because they did beat the number 1 overall seed UCLA twice, and those are UCLA's only 2 losses. You know, the fact they did play 3 times. UCLA did turn around and beat USC. So, I mean, you could argue that maybe USC deserves to be a little bit higher. But again, you know, like you're splitting hairs now because you're a number 1 seed. UConn is a number 2 seed, and there are, you know, 3 other number 2 seeds. You were going to have to play somebody good at the end of the day. So, and like, I don't know what you're crying about.
To be honest with you, like just the direct comparison of how Niele Ivey and Lindsey Gottlieb handled this conversation is why you should be proud that Niele Ivey is the head coach of the women's team, because she didn't talk about it one bit. She talked about, well, it's just time to go to work, and you know, we've got things to figure out, and I don't care where we're at. We're just here to play basketball. And here's a team that got a 1 seed, and they're moaning and groaning about who they're going to be, again, potentially be playing in the Elite 8 if they even make it that far. And so It's just it shows, you know, the focus. And I think you guys said it yesterday, or I can't remember where I heard this. It's the job of the coach to always spin everything as a positive or a fun thing at the end of the day. Like what we're doing,
yes,
even though it might suck, is fun, or even though we might not have gotten the outcome that we wanted, how do you spin it in a positive way? And that's immediately what Niele Ivey did. She didn't go into this pit of sorrow about, oh, we're a 1 seed, but I don't like who our 2 seed is. It's like, I'm worried about what's happening in 3 days in our first matchup and how we need to get better if we want to, you know, fulfill our expectations for the season.
Yeah, you can't get hung up on all those little things. The path is the path, and now you've got to deal with it.
It's like not changing.
That's right. Nothing is going to change it. You know, just like nothing was going to get West Virginia in the tournament or boot North Carolina out of the tournament at this point. They are all in. You were a number 1 seed, and it just happens to be that you didn't get the matchup that you like. But as you said, they've got to win other games just to get to that matchup with you.
Well, and it's I'm glad you shared that story about Paul yesterday, because it's you can get focused in the wrong things, and that's in March. That's exactly just what the other team wants you to be focused on, not them, and potentially your Elite 8 matchup with UConn. And it's funny you brought that story up, because that was probably the most disappointing outcome that Paul had his entire time.
It was Notre Dame. Yeah.
And I remember I don't remember a lot from when I was a kid, but I remember where I was. I was like literally at a baseball practice in starting my, you know, summer season with Barnaby's baseball. And I remember everyone just kind of like getting the news that they had lost, and like just audible gasp. And like, I can't believe, because Notre Dame baseball was the thing at the time, you know, especially around the South Bend area. Paul's son played in the little league that I was a part of. So like that also played a part of it. And so, you know, it's just, that's the stuff that can kind of happen to you, is you have this great season and you get wrapped up in the wrong stuff and stuff you or change. And now next thing you know, you're losing in the Sweet 16 potentially, you know?
Right. Yep. That's exactly right. Play what's in front of you. And Christopher is asking my feeling on the Notre Dame women going into the tournament. I mean, it is good. You know, is there more doubt now than there was 3 weeks ago? Of course, because of what they have gone through. But when I look at who's on the roster and you think back at what they did over the course of the better part of 3 months of the season, you know, like we were talking about yesterday, it feels like the selection committee gave much more weight to the last 3 or 4 games of the season rather than the first 3 to 4 months of the season when making that decision. But I don't want to get hung up on that. My point is, we've all seen what this team can do. The fact, the fact that they were beating, not just everyday ordinary teams, but ranked teams the way they were, by double digits over the course of the season. And we know that is the team. The challenge on Friday is going to be like how they get out and defend the perimeter, because Stephen F. Austin is going to chuck up 3 after 3 after 3. That's what they're going to do. But I mean, Notre Dame has shown that they can go up against some of those good 3-point shooting teams and defend that. Like there's I'm picturing Sonia Citron and her long arms towering over a couple of smaller shooters out there. That's going to be one of the big matchups. But because going back to what Jesse was just talking about, I think that the positive mentality, the positive attitude of Niele Ivey and the coaching staff, that trickles down through the rest of the team. So I feel really good. And, I think that we're going to see a couple of pretty good wins here this weekend at Purcell Pavilion by the Irish, starting with Stephen F. Austin on Friday, and then either Michigan or Iowa State or Princeton on Sunday, and it's on to the Sweet 16 for the 4th straight year.
So a couple things that I would add, and not that I'm a residential expert like some of the other people on the show right now, but I think the biggest thing for them is having a little bit of time off. I think was great for them because they could just finally stop and catch their breath after the whirlwind of the ever since they got named the number 1 team in the country. It feels like it's just been this sprint to the finish line, and not a sprint that they were controlling. I guess is what
there was a little bit of a spiral,
right? And so I think
spinning to not quite out of control, but like in that direction anyway.
And so to kind of have some time off, catch your breath, and really have some good practices, and obviously work on some stuff that maybe caused you to start spiraling there a little bit, does well for them. But their biggest thing, in my opinion, and I hate to kind of piggyback here a little bit, but Notre Dame is at its best when their defense pushes their offense into scoring. And that's the thing that I think was really frustrating, is at the beginning of the season, they were playing just really good all-around team defense. And I think when you focus on playing hard defense, the offense comes naturally. Like, they have 3 amazing guards. Like, the points will come. Just focus on playing good defense and allowing that good defense to turn into offense. And I think if they do that the entire tournament, things will take care of itself because of just how skilled they are at every position, really. And especially once the ball's in their hands and they're on offense.
I agree. I don't disagree with that at all. Like, everything starts at the defensive end of the floor for them. And Ivy talks about it all the time. Get the stops, get out and run. That's where they're at their best.
Because if you can work in transition and then Notre Dame kind of starts dictating their pace and it speeds up other teams, then they're going to force bad shots. And what's that mean? Notre Dame's grabbing the ball and running out in transition. Or maybe they're sloppy and Hannah's poking a ball out and now they're running in transition again. Like, those things, teams start to get uncomfortable when Notre Dame's pace starts to set in a little bit. But that all starts with good defense and getting out, in front of some of these teams.
Yep, exactly. Could not agree more. All right, last question for you tonight. Which is the better sports month, March or October?
So I used to be biased because March is my birth month, and nothing is better than my birth month. But
and October is my birth month.
But I have to go with October because you're in the heat or the thick of college football season. You're starting to get a grasp of where your NFL team is. Are they a playoff team? Are we going to start tanking here for a draft pick? You got the World Series going on for baseball. And then in March, it's just kind of really, you're winding down NHL and NBA seasons. really in March, in my opinion, all you got is the MLB starting and obviously the March Madness on both sides, right? And so, me personally, I'll be the first one to say, and you know this, I'm just more of a professional sports fan than I am a college sports fan. And if March is driven by March Madness, which I enjoy, don't get me wrong, it's just there's far more stuff going on professionally and the implications in October.
Yeah, ultimately, I think the 2 days that are coming up, Thursday and Friday, and this first 4 days of the tournament are arguably the best, 4 days on the sports calendar, just because of all the craziness and all the stories that are developing with upsets and everything else in the tournament. But for the entirety of the month, for all the reasons that you talked about, you got college football and the NFL kicking into, kicking into full gear. Really, we're starting to see what teams are actually going to be legitimate playoff contenders, and of course, the baseball playoffs and the World Series to go along with it. And then, if you're into the other sports as well, NBA and NHL, those sports are getting started, and for that matter, like college basketball hasn't started yet, but it's getting ready to get started. So you've got some of the anticipation with that goes into October as well. So there's just like playoff baseball is the best baseball, and you get that in October to go along with all the greatness of football. So for all those reasons, sorry, Stymie, I've got to go with October as well.
So I know this wouldn't push the needle for you, but I think that March would have a bigger argument if the Masters was the last week of March and not the first week of April.
Yeah, good point. Like if it wasn't right after the Final Four.
Yes.
Yep.
But that's probably done by design,
Yeah, true. Weather 1, but 2 makes for the perfect TV segue going from March Madness into golf. All right, well, that's going to do it for tonight. We're actually on the eve of Jesse's birthday. He's about to enter
the eve of spring practice starting tomorrow.
About to enter the final year of
his
20s.
Whoa. Don't let that be known.
Let me see. I got the email reminder about the start of practice tomorrow. No changes, so everything looks good. So we'll be out there tomorrow. I know Brian will have a show in the middle of the day. Vince and I will be back tomorrow night, and you'll hear some Marcus Freeman comments from after practice tomorrow. The Marcus Freeman press conference on tomorrow's show.
I will, as much as I would say I'd like to be here, I'll be eating a nice steak for my birthday dinner.
Any particular place that you're doing that?
It's I won't say because there's maybe some weirdos that might show up, but there's a new steak place
Cleveland
in the area.
Stalkers.
There's a new steak place in the area that opened up, and I've been wanting to go. They have kind of fun. I don't know if I'll have any, but they have like fun cocktails, good dessert menu, really good steaks. So, I feel like you can never turn down a new steak place for your birthday at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And
I don't have to pay for it. And that's even I'm getting treated. I'm getting treated here.
There you go. All right. Well, enjoy that. And I will talk to you on Thursday. Everybody else, thanks for being here as always. And we'll talk to you tomorrow. Day 1, spring football practice. Notre Dame.